everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Forgotten Experiments event in which the Corrupted Sorceress as well as the Remanant are added to the game. Also, there was a buff to Draakulis this week, which I'll be going over in a bit. Don't forget there's only about 2 days more left to be able to obtain him until he is just in the mix with all the other mythics, which will make it a lot harder to be able to obtain him directly. But anyways, let's get right into it. Two particularly interesting troops this week, as they both end up bringing a somewhat different mechanic in what they do compared to the regular stuff. Well, same mechanics, but a different way of using it. As far as the Corrupted Sorceress, she is the first troop in the entire game that creates mana as she does a summon like this, but she actually creates mana of the thing that she summons, like a giant spider. Giant spider creates a bunch of mana, but it's the mana it creates is not what it uses nor what its summon uses. But with the Corrupted Sorceress, she actually creates red gems, which both the Anointed One and Remanant use. So the gems that she's spawning will be usable by the troops that she summons. So that will be pretty interesting, since as long as they trigger correctly, you'll essentially be feeding mana to whatever she summons, almost like a automatic fast or empowered on it. And the fact that Anointed One automatically has fast is pretty good. I don't believe it triggers though when you summon it, just because it triggers at the beginning of the game. But if you had an initial one, it would trigger on it. As far as traits go, pretty much any troop with 2 different immunities tends to be pretty bad as being worth trading. For the most part, I would say that still is applicable for her. Any kind of dual immunity is nothing like a full impervious. But she does have Demonic Pact with a 25% chance whenever she dies to summon an Ancient Horror. It works particularly good with her because an Ancient Horror actually is brown-purple. So if she dies and triggers that, you won't have any kind of mana conflict because it'll be the exact same color that she is. So let's head over to the next one. And this is the Remanant. This is quite a powerful common as well. It explodes 2 random gems and then gains a bunch to a random skill, which is based on its magic. And what makes this really interesting is the fact that it can explode these 2 gems. It only has a 7 mana cost, so it could potentially get all of its mana back. One thing to note about this troop is it is the lowest cost stat gain in the entire game. Like, of every single troop that gains stats for casting, it has the cheapest, and on top of that, it even gains mana for casting as well. So it'll just be able to keep casting over and over again and gaining stats like crazy. And depending on how lucky you get it on the correct stats, it can just tear apart the enemy. One other thing that is kind of interesting about this troop, it is the first troop ever to have both regeneration and reinforced, and since it has immunity to stun, you won't be Emperor Corvash and stuff won't be able to disable its traits. And against Emperor Corvash in particular, this troop will be pretty good because Emperor Corvash does stun, it does physical damage, and it does true damage, so it'll be able to counter that fairly well. Remnant in general will be good against any kind of team that is using both physical damage as well as true damage, because it's reinforcing or regenerating or whatever you call it. It's gaining its stats back on both of them at the same exact time. So every single turn that pass, if it has armor and HP damage, it's going to be gaining back 2 stats. So it can be end up getting pretty tanky, especially with the fact that it gains to a random skill over and over again. Anyways, let's drop the redeem code RQEH E2GN1P, and that gives the regular of 2 treasure maps, 1 gem key, 200 souls, and 2,500 gold for the first 200 people to claim it. So let's go over, and since Darkstone of course has 10 or more troops, it is exactly 10, it is time to just go over every single troop in the kingdom, just give a brief overview of them all. Anointed One, this of course is one of them that the Corrupted Sorceress is going to be summoning. You would of course want to get him traded and leveled if you were to use it with him. But what he does is gains a bunch of attack and life and then transforms greens to reds. For the most part, you'd mainly only use him with Shegra on his own without really using him with anything else. You don't really need him. I think Shegra is really the only instance where he is decent, mostly because of the fact that it gains attack and then even creates more reds for it. Next up is Corrupted Sorceress. We already went over her. Dark Master is a very popular early game troop. Falls off after about level 100, hero level 100. But in the extreme early game, it is really powerful. It deals 9 damage at all levels. Doesn't matter what level it is, it'll always deal 9 damage. And then it summons a Thrall that's based on its magic. And if it ends up killing something with that 9 damage, all allies gain 2 attacks. One thing to note in the current meta is that this 2 attack does trigger after before the summon. So the summon Thrall that it ends up summoning does not get that extra 2 attack bonus. But other than that, it is really powerful given all those things for earlier on in the game. Obviously, later in the game, 9 damage is pretty much nothing. That'd be 0 damage, basically. As far as traits go, they're okay. You'd mainly just use them within night teams for the most part. Demotroxia, basically useless. Does a little bit of split damage and has a very low chance of burning everything. Not just one, but everything. The main thing that makes it useless is there's much better split damage in this game, like Rowan or even Bull Taurus of the exact same color who got a buff recently. So he's kind of just completely fallen off. And the fact that it's only a 25% chance to burn everyone, you don't really need that, especially if you happen to have a war. Even though it's a mythic, if you happen to have war, that's a 100% chance to burn everyone. And in comparison, it is just completely useless. It's not even good in dragon teams because there's plenty of other reds and yellow dragons that none that are actually red-yellow, but plenty of reds like Shegra or yellow like Celastasia that you would place in a dragon team instead of Demotroxia. Anyways, Hag got a buff recently as well. Not too recently, like about a couple weeks ago, it got its mana cost reduced from 9 to 8. Still extremely useless. All it does is a random stat to an enemy and then gains a random skill. Kind of like the Revenant, except it just does the random status effect again, and it won't have that mana generation to get it back up. For the most part, you never need to use Hag. She also has awful traits, so pretty much ignore her. Scion is really good at being able to keep down the mana of the enemy. It is the legendary of this kingdom. It deals a little bit of true damage in split, but then drains 5 mana from all enemies, which will really make sure they can pretty much never cast. Something else that is really good about this is if you can get its legendary trait, it steals the enemy mana whenever it does skull damage. And by steal, it literally means steal. It'll take all of the mana that you drain from them and add it to Scion. So if they had like 16 mana or something, you do skull damage. You're going to take all of that mana, have your cast all the way up instantly, and then you'll just be able to cast it on your next turn. Or even that same turn if that skull was from an extra turn. Revenant, we already went over. Sea Troll just doubles the amount of blues on the board. There really isn't any use for this other than with a fully traded Winter Imp. So you can pretty much just ignore this troop. Next up is Thrall, something you'd want to be getting traded and leveled if you were to use Dark Master. Other than with Dark Master, Thrall has no purpose at all as a troop. And Watcher has always been a little bit weak. Now with the addition of Corrupted Sorceress, you pretty much never have any reason at all to use a Watcher. For one, it has a bond of something that isn't even its own type, as well as the fact that it requires this status effect in order to be able to drain mana. And there's plenty of other drains out there for cheaper, for better, that can drain without having a requirement at all. One only really good thing about this is if you can get casting a lot, it does gain 1 magic every single time an ally casts, and every single time it gets 1 more magic, that's an additional true damage that it's going to be doing. So there are some instances in which you might be able to feed that up to a really high amount, but other than that, not really. So let's get into the 2 teams. I did one for earlier game and one for later game of pretty much the same exact build. I am going to go down to a 2 trophy for this first one, mostly because it is built more towards an early game, and I don't want to waste forever trying to do it on a ridiculous match. But anyways, it is Remanant, Goblin Rocket, Corrupt Sorceress, and the Naga Queen. The main focus of this is just creating a bunch of reds. Naga Queen creates reds, it converts brown to reds, and of course Corrupted Sorcerer creates 9 reds. And the central premise of this team is to use Remanant as a tank, and Goblin Rocket will be spamming its ability over and over again with all the reds that you'll be able to create on the board. So let's get into this. We're also using the new Leonis Empire banner of +1 yellow, +2 blue, and -1 green. If you happen to have not had... The main 2 traits that you'd actually need if you were using this earlier on would be Goblin Rocket's first trait, and if you can afford it, Naga Queen's second trait. It's pretty easy to obtain. That's a common, ultra rare, ultra rare, ultra rare. The ultra rares, of course, would be the hardest part to actually obtain of it, but she is the event of this week, so it will be slightly easier to at least get the sorceress. So there we go, we got that up. The main thing that we'll be able to do with this team is just keep spamming the Goblin Rocket. There's going to be so many reds on the board that we can just keep doing it wherever we want and getting it over and over again. It's going to be huge board control. Absolutely ridiculous in how much we'll be able to do pretty much anything with the board that we want. And as I say that, we probably don't have a good move here. We could take those skulls and go for the kill. It's not really going to do much though. Let's use his ability. It's going to explode 2 random gems. And he just gained HP there. We'll be able to take these purples. Before I do, I'm thinking about just Goblin Rocketing somewheres. Though there doesn't seem to be anywhere that will be viable. We'll just take the skulls. He dies down. Take a bunch of green. Still looking for a Goblin Rocket cast. Not seeing any though. None that are worth taking. Mostly because we have mana on everything and there isn't really a need to cast anywheres. So let's just move these reds closer together. And try getting an extra turn off them with this. Of course, the summon will do nothing because we currently are using all of our slots, but it will create plenty of reds, which will get us starting to loop over again. We'll just take the skulls whenever they're available. Our Remanant's attack is a little bit low, but that's mainly because we don't have him leveled that much. I just have him at an ultra rare, whereas, or same as the sorceress. Whereas the other 2 I have at Mythic, which is why they're seem to appear scaled so low. But he actually does have a much higher attack relative to everything else as you get him leveled further. But anyways, let's just keep taking these reds. As much as we can get him cast, he's just going to keep buffing up his own skills over and over again. I might just ignore those skulls just so we can get some other mana. We didn't get a purple surge though. That was the main one I was wanting from that. So we'll just take those yellows, start getting Goblin Rocket looping again, and go from there. We'll be able to, let's see, we'll take this first. Hopefully that will hit the first one, and it does, so we'll be able to kill it with those skulls. We'll take it that way so we also get the reds. We'll be able to explode again, and pretty much go from there. And even if our Revenant was to die somehow with this constant regeneration from both of them, we'll just summon another one, or an anointed one. In all honesty, I'd almost feel like in many cases the Remanant would be better than the Anointed one. The Anointed one isn't horrible, but like I mentioned earlier, his fast trait isn't going to be triggering unless they fix that in the future. But so that's going to be one big disadvantage for the Anointed one. Plus the fact that it has a constant regeneration like that's going to make him really tanky. He has those explosions and gaining a bunch of random stats. He's actually a really, really strong common. And I keep saying actually. I need to stop that in the future. Anyways. Let's just explode it and he'll die really soon. Unfortunately, his explosions don't really do that much. Of course, they're completely random, so you have no control at all what they're going to do. So, like you saw right there, they actually ended up hitting just the 2 corners, only exploding 8 gems. So that was actually really bad. That was basically the worst luck you can possibly get other than giving the enemy some kind of ridiculous move. So all we need to do now is just cast Goblin Rocket, and the match is over. And even there, even though we got that poison there, because we're getting both reinforced and regeneration, it's not a problem at all. And that is match. And now we'll be able to go over the Draakulis buff as well. He's only going to be exclusive in chest for 2 more days. He'll still be in chest after that, but he's going to be mixed in with all the other mythics in the drop pool. And of course, there's like, what now? 5 mythics. Plus, there's going to be another one every single month hereafter, so it's going to get a little bit congested in the drops if you're looking for a particular one. But anyways, let's take this team over to late game. We're going to be running it still with both the new troops, but we're going to be using Valkyrie instead of Goblin Rocket, and Draakulis instead of what did we even replace Draakulis with? Instead of Naga Queen. So of course we'll be able to get the Valkyrie farm from this. We still are using a +1 red. We need to make sure that we have that, just so on Remanant, if we take a red surge, we'll be able to get him up in 1 turn. We want to make sure we maintain that. And essentially, we are using all of the troops other than Corrupted Sorceress is red. So she should be able to do quite a bit of work with her red casting. So let's just get right into this then and see how this goes. And as soon as we get into this match, I can show the Draakulis change. Most of you probably already saw it, though, on the forum, but I figured I'd go over it real quick. Couple things that changed. For one, they changed the icon. Before, it was like some kind of mountain splitting. I guess they accidentally used the wrong icon. Now it's this sword thing, which works pretty good since this is Vampire Blade. The other change that he has is he got a 2 magic increase. Before it was 2 lower. Now, like before, it would have been just 12. Now it's 14 on mine. Another change is it got its mana cost reduced by 2. It was 24 earlier, now down to 22. All buffs, of course, on it. And lastly, it's King's Will. Used to be gain 5 life whenever it deals skull damage. Now it is 8, which is quite a huge difference. It's now scaled similarly to that of the Great Maul. The Great Maul gains 2 to all stats, and since there's 4 stats, attack, HP, armor, and magic, the Great Maul is essentially gaining 8 stats. So now the King's Will is scaled with that to essentially be 8 stats as well, except all 8 stats are life instead of 2 from each. So it's scaled quite a bit better. Is he viable now? Yes, he's definitely a lot more viable than he was. Is he still better than Crimson Bat? That is slightly arguable. It depends what kind of team you're using. In most instances, you'd probably want to use both Draakulis and Crimson Bat because, of course, like I mentioned in previous video, if you use both 3 Golvania and 3 Undead, you're gaining a total of 2 extra magic. So that's going to be very helpful on both of them. And also, Draakulis with 2 extra magic is exactly what Crimson Bat is normally. So that buff really helped him make him more power up to that of Crimson Bat's damage. But still, Draakulis is more of the tank version of Crimson Bat, even after that change. It's kind of funny, we're doing almost worse on this match with the weaker team than we did with the newer player team. But now we have everything rolling, so we should be good to go from this point. Draakulis, of course, is our main damage source here. We're just going to keep stealing their life over and over again and claiming kills like crazy. We'll want to make sure we do not convert out reds. Any color other than red will be sufficient here. And I guess we'll do it on green. I mean, yeah, green. Eventually, I'll learn my colors. That is green now. We'll take this. Almost get Draakulis back up as well. After we do get it up, we'll also be able to get another Valkyrie cast up for all those lovely souls. We could use Valkyrie again. Of course, it's a bit of a waste. We'll just let it take skulls there. Hopefully, a red doesn't drop. Let me just take that real quick. Didn't even see that. Good thing it blinked. We'll just take life again. The Draakulis buff really feels nice. As you can see, it's actually completely tearing them apart right now. And all we really have to do is use this. That's almost going to be enough mana for it to get back up. Our Remanant's getting a little bit dead, so we are going to have to cast that probably. It's going to mana drain us. We could always risk it with a gem spawn instead. That would give us a better chance to get an extra turn. So I'm going to do that. And we do miss, so that didn't work out. That might kill it too. Yes, it will. And I just used our summon up too, so I won't be able to get that summon off on it. Might want to get it back up, but we could just go straight for the kill right here. And that will be matched. Draakulis buff, definitely very, very powerful. And of course, if we needed to, Remanant would just, Corrupted Sorceress could just resummon one of them. on command, and our Remnant would have been replaced with an anointed one or another Remnant, just replacing it exactly as it was. So another good thing about Remnant is anything with summons, you want to make sure with how summons currently work, anything that triggers at the beginning of a game doesn't function on summons, but on so if you use something like a Remnant, it has immunity to stun, which will automatically always trigger. Plus, it's reinforced and HP, which of course will always trigger too, as long as it has damage reduced on it, which is better than some of the other summons, like Anointed One, for example, who has the fast trait, which will never trigger automatically because it's dependent upon being activated on the very first turn when the game starts. So if you just summon it, it's not going to trigger. So things like Remnant and other troops that are summons that have all three traits that are always constant tend to work a lot better than summons that are a little bit stronger troop-wise, but lack the traits to really make it better. But anyways, that will do it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.